Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. And we're starting with Sony's recent earnings. I want to cover some of the PlayStation division earnings and also go over some of the quotes that have come out of Sony in regards to what we can expect when it comes to potential price increases for the PS5 and stuff like that. But the first thing I want to start with is the fact that the PS5 has officially hit a lifetime unit sales number of 77.8 million units sold, and they sold 2.8 million of those units in the last quarter, and for the entire fiscal year, they sold 18.5 million, which is actually really strong overall. But when we look at the 77.8 million total PS5 sales, if you're wondering how that's pacing against the PS4 time-aligned, the PS5 is currently sitting about 1 million units behind, so it's pretty much still neck and neck with the PS4. You do have to wonder if by the time something like GTA 6 drops, if that's really what's going to propel the PS5 ahead of the PS4. Something else I want to highlight here that's actually pretty astonishing is that Sony achieved $31.74 billion in total revenue from their gaming division for fiscal year 2024. And the significance of this is the first time this has ever occurred in gaming. No gaming company has ever achieved this type of revenue, in a fiscal year. Sony's the first one to do it. And so, again, it's quite an achievement on their part. And I do come across some people who seem to be under the impression that the PlayStation division is suffering or going downhill or just doing very poorly, but it's actually the exact opposite. And it is worth keeping this in mind because it just goes to show that a lot of what Sony is doing, whether people are critical of it or not, it is working, so you can at least understand why they're continuing to do it. But yeah, I figured I would let you guys know about that. Now we're going to talk about Sony acknowledging the tariffs and how that may or may not impact their need to increase the price of the PS5. We have a quote here from Zubitech. It says, Sony on PlayStation 5 tariff price increase, quote, in terms of the tariffs, we are not just simply calculating the simple tariff prices to come up with 100 billion yen, but are thinking about the current available information and looking at the market trend. We may pass the price to customers and also shipment allocation. So we are taking different measures in managing to come up to 100 billion yen. The PS5 hardware can of course be produced locally in the US. I think that would be an efficient strategy, but the PlayStation 5 is being manufactured in many countries. So whether it's going to be manufactured in the US or not, it needs to be considered going forward in such a critical situation. We're also hearing from Sony's new CFO, Lin Tao, that they apparently have stockpiled 3 months worth of PS5s. This is being reported by Genki Japan. Sony CFO Lin Tao says they have 3 months worth of stockpiled PS5 inventory in the US and outlined further steps they are taking to combat US tariffs. Number 1, stockpiling strategic inventory in the US. Number 2, adjusting production shipment allocations on a global basis. And number 3, raising market prices on certain products with an eye on the market situation. She also stated that they are diversifying the PS5 supply chain, with the PS5 now being manufactured in 4 different countries, China of which has the highest ratio. So it seems that Sony is not ready to increase the price of the PlayStation 5 console yet, and I emphasize the word yet because the way I'm reading this is they are absolutely prepared to do that, but it really does seem like they don't want to unless it's absolutely necessary, which is good because, you would think that maybe they would just use this whole tariff situation as an excuse to just do it now. But, it's one of these things where right now there's like a 90-day pause on the situation between the US and China and the discussions on tariffs there. So, Sony did prepare accordingly. They have stockpiled PS5s for about that same amount of time. And it really seems like it's going to come down to how those negotiations end up panning out between the US and China. And that will ultimately be the determining factor in whether or not Sony's going to have to pull the trigger here and increase the price of the PS5. So, we'll have to keep an eye on this. Hopefully that doesn't happen because, man, that's going to suck. But I think, honestly, at this point, everybody's kind of prepared for it. But continuing to talk about Sony's overall strategy here, and this is something that I thought was really important, and I wanted to highlight to you guys. This is also coming from Genki Japan. Sony CFO Lin Tao says that there have been 2 major changes to SIE since the recent leadership change. Now we're talking about Hiroki Totoki becoming the new CEO of Sony, as well as Hideaki Nishino becoming the head of Sony Interactive Entertainment. So the 2 changes are as follows. Number 1, before sell-in units was the focus, but now management is focused on engagement and monthly active users leading to profitability. Number 2, financial discipline within the first-party studios. In the past, there were various issues. We are still halfway, but I think the mindset has changed significantly. Now, this might literally be the most important information we're getting from Sony in terms of, acknowledging major changes that are occurring with the new leadership. So they're basically coming out and saying that units sold is no longer the main focus. Engagement and monthly active users are now the main focus. And, this is, this I guess is an inevitable change, but you do have to wonder what this means for the PlayStation console going forward, because, units sold has always been the number 1 main priority for a good reason, because that's tethered to the PlayStation console. The PlayStation console's tethered to the PlayStation Store and the ecosystem and the games and everything else, right? So I don't want to speculate too much here because they didn't go into detail, but I've been telling you guys for a while, to really kind of expect anything when it comes to PlayStation, and don't be surprised if you see Sony maybe start to get more aggressive with branching out and doing things very differently, and not necessarily deprioritizing the console, but the console no longer being their ultimate singular priority. So we'll see what this leads to, but I thought this was very important. And the second thing here, they straight up say that they have mismanaged money when it comes to their first-party studios, and they're going to be working on becoming more financially disciplined. I don't think this is a surprise. We know that Sony's been working on this for the last year or so, and that, under Jim Ryan, the studios were greatly mismanaged, not only just in the type of games that they were told to develop, with the whole push for live service, but financially as well. So we'll have to see what ends up going on there, but still I wanted to make sure to highlight these 2 things because I do think they're probably the 2 most important pieces of information we're learning here. But continuing to go over different quotes from Sony's Q&A that was translated, I actually want to refer to William Aguilar, who compiled a couple of interesting quotes here. The first one is on monthly active users. The past 14 quarters have been positive. PS4 continues to be used active, but going forward, more people will transition to PS5. However, many PS5 owners are new users, so MAUs will continue to increase. As to console sales, in Q4 sales were 2.8 million units, which was expected. We are anticipating 15 million PS5 unit sales in fiscal year 2025, but we are looking to be flexible with expectations based on tariffs and market conditions, end quote. So I thought this one was worth going over because it's Sony acknowledging that their monthly active users is growing quite, I would say relatively significantly. And you can see they're talking about monthly active users before they even talk about PS5 units sold. But yes, their forecast for the next fiscal year is 15 million PS5 units. And, obviously that's not counting GTA 6, right? Which I think they mention here in the next quote. Regarding first-party games in fiscal year 2025, we are excited for Ghost of Yotei and Death Stranding 2. Since they are sequels, we expect a certain amount of fan enjoyment and engagement. Regarding Marathon, there is a little risk due to it being multiplayer, but we have factored that into our expectations. Regarding third-party, we have quite promising lineups coming this year. GTA 6 is not factored into our expectations. We are excited for upcoming games and our continued leadership with studios involved in the China Hero project, such as Lost Soul Aside. So, yeah, nothing too crazy here. Obviously, they're letting them know we're not factoring in GTA 6. GTA 6 will launch the next fiscal year, And they talk about Ghost of Yotei, Death Stranding 2. They're expecting them to do relatively well. But they do explicitly state here that there is risk with marathons. So they seem to be aware of this, and they are factoring it in. I wonder what that looks like, though, in terms of them preparing for, I hate to say it, potential failure here after what happened with Concord. Like, is that, like, are they ready for something on that level to potentially happen again? You do have to wonder. The next quote here, they say, "We will continue to search out new opportunities for merger and acquisitions if we feel that we can create more value and synergies from it. As CEO, my focus in management will be on asking how much growth and profit we can expect from possible M&As, and we find appropriate opportunities. If we find appropriate opportunities for M&A, we will study them and act on them," end quote. The final quote here is Sony Interactive Entertainment / PlayStation is under new leadership with Hideaki Nishino as CEO of all of SIE and Herman Hulst as CEO of the Studio Business Group. Hiroki Totoki is now the CEO of all of Sony. Previously, Totoki acted as the temporary CEO of SIE to implement several reforms for structure and profitability. There is a new culture in the leadership at PlayStation / SIE / the games and network services with a focus on improving MAUs, end quote. See, another really important tell here. They're flat out telling you that there is a complete culture shift with this new leadership, and they are purely focused on MAUs. I don't necessarily think this is what, some of the core PlayStation fans, especially those who love the console experience, I don't know that this is what they want to hear, but at the same time, I just don't think anybody can truly feel surprised by this, given the way the industry is shifting and what's going on. But I will be very curious to hear what you guys have to say about this. And obviously, I did not cover everything regarding Sony's financials. I don't want to just, bore everybody by just throwing numbers out there. Obviously, I'll have links down below to some of the sources where I got these quotes from and this information. You can go check out their profiles. They cover all this in extreme detail. But guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.